Hi there, I'm Tony Mitra and I'm going to tell you why I'm disappointed with this GMO Revealed series. There are a number of very important issues in my mind that are related to this topic of how to fight off GMOs, and especially glyphosate, which is attached to the GMOs, which is causing such havoc across the planet for 40 goddamn years. And all these important points were missed out in these 9 episodes. Some of them were vaguely brushed upon, touched upon on the fringes and let alone and not analyzed properly, and the rest of it was completely missed out. I don't have time to list out all of them. I'm not here to educate people. I'm done educating people and raising awareness. This technology, this glyphosate and stuff has been with us for 40 goddamn years. How many more years do people need to raise awareness? Another 500 years? I don't have that time, and I don't think the world has that time. So anyway, I do what I can to directly confront one of the root issues that I think is related to this, and that is political corruption in Canada. There is no other way to say it. But I know that the root of the root of the root goes back to US government, and there is no getting around it. So I will tell you a few things, at least one or two, that I think is very relevant. I don't have time to list 8 or 10 items that this series missed out. Just 2. One of them is to do with Biodiversity Preservation Act of the United Nations, and in particular the Cartagena Protocol under it. Now, how many people know about it? I suppose most of us at least know this much, that there is this thing called United Nations. It was created after Second World War. It replaced League of Nations, and its headquarters is in New York. There is this town called New York somewhere in the USA. Many of us have been there, and its headquarters is there. What do they do? Apart from talking about whatever is happening around the world and making sound bites, they also time to time pass some kind of legislation, some kind of act that becomes law in countries that adopt it, countries that agree to it, and so on. They have many branches under it, like World Health Organization, blah, blah, blah. So, one of these acts passed by the United Nations is called Preservation of Biodiversity Act. It has a great ramification to this topic of GMOs and what's happening around the world. Great! I will tell you why. And within that umbrella of biodiversity preservation, there is a particular branch called Cartagena Protocol. I want to talk about it here. Now, what is the history of this thing? Well, the act itself was first proposed by 2 countries in 1970, that's almost 50 years ago, by India and Sweden. And I'll tell you why they did it. That also has relevance to this topic. You see, from India's point of view, the countries that are located in the tropical belt, humid tropical belt, well-watered tropical belt, they have much more unit biomass and biodiversity per square mile or square kilometer. What does it mean? It means they have more varieties of plants and herbs and microorganisms and animal kingdom and so on, many of which has great value to mankind as medicinal and so on, and many of them have been used, for example in India, for thousands of years as herbal medicine and local medical help. But these were being stolen by corporations from the West, particularly from the US, who were patenting it because those that were practicing this medicine and these herbs for so long in these countries, they did not patent it exactly the way the US law works, and therefore there is no proof according to their eyes that this has been already invented or recognized by somebody else, and therefore it's up for grabs, and therefore they're being grabbed. So this was happening all across the world, or in all the countries where biodiversity was rich, who had a rich biological heritage that was being stolen by corporations in the US, supported by the US government. They were enabling it, and this is what was happening, and that is why India proposed it back in 1970. Sweden had its own reason also to support it. But what happened after that? Well, USA for one would not support it, would not want to get it passed. So they opposed it. And because USA is so powerful, and because most of Western European countries after the Second World War were still so dependent on yourself, that this proposal didn't get off the ground initially for a long time. Then one by one, countries started getting on board because they thought it was a great idea, not only for India or Sweden, for many other countries. They all had something, unique that they wanted to preserve. So, the minimum number of countries that are required for this thing to take effect finally was reached in 1990, 20 years down the line. And that is when Biodiversity Preservation Act came into being in the United Nations. And along with it came the Cartagena Protocol. Now, what is this Cartagena Protocol? I'll tell you what. By 1990, GMO and its associated synthetic herbicides, like glyphosate, for instance, were already on the horizon. So they made this particular act very cleverly to create a framework which adopting countries could pick up and use to make country-specific laws aimed to protect their biological diversity from unintended harm from introduction of living modified organisms, which is their way of saying GMO, and associated herbicides and all that. This was the wording of Cartagena Protocol. Now, do you realize the importance of this law? What happened to it? I'll tell you what, it's 27 years in 1990. 170 odd countries have signed it, ratified it, and made it a law in their country, trying to protect their biological diversity, their flora, their fauna, their everything, their agricultural produce from harm by introduced GMO and pesticides. But, there is a but. USA never signed it, never ratified it, and has worked tirelessly for the last 27 years to destroy this, infiltrate it, change the wording, dilute it, and lean on the countries to back off and allow this toxic soup to be shoved down their throat. Otherwise, they will be targeted as enemies of the planet and so on. This is the role of the US government, which makes it nearly impossible for anybody else to really adopt the Cartagena Protocol of the United Nations. Now tell me, isn't this important when you're talking about a 9-series episode on GMOs and all that of one of the root causes? It's not the only one. One of the main root causes why we have this shit across us. How come nobody mentioned it? I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't make a career of educating people. I don't even like the people who go around educating. I mean, not particularly. I know a few that I respect. But generally, how come I know about it? And how come all these people don't talk about it? I can only think of two reasons. A, all these guys who have been spending 10, 20 years talking about GMO and yak all over the place. If they don't know about it, according to me, they're idiots. They should give up talking to people and first educate yourself before you can think of educating anybody else. That's number one. And if you knew about it, you knew everything about it and decided not to speak, you are a fraud. So now, all these people watching this episode, you have a choice. Listen to a bunch of frauds or listen to a bunch of idiots. This is one of the reasons, this is not the only one, but this is one of the reasons I'm so disappointed with this series. They only give you half the education. They don't solve anything. And, most of them make a career out of talking bad about GMO. I mean, it's become a career. And, you charge money, you sell books. This goddamn series is supposed to earn money by asking you to pay for it. Just imagine. They're keeping you half educated. They're telling you some idiotic solutions on the fringes. They will not let you get at the root causes, any of the root causes, and solve them. So business as usual can continue, poisoning and killing the whole planet, and they can continue selling this goddamn, stuff and asking you to pay money. I hate this so-called professional anti-GMO speakers. I don't have any respect. Anyway, I have said my piece. There is another thing I can tell you. I mean, there are 8 or 9 serious misgivings or serious omissions in this series. One more is about court cases. There is some mention by here and there by this or that people how everyone who tries to sue Monsanto loses in the Supreme Court and High Court everywhere, and how and then they don't dig any further. They mention Michael Clark, who was a lawyer from Monsanto who ended up in the government, and then they go back in the revolving door business. All that is true. But why don't you get to the bottom of it? What is the meaning of this revolving door? What is happening to the law? I will tell you what. These people from Monsanto lawyers get into the government and get into the Supreme Court, all that, so that they can influence the government to rewrite the laws so that whatever companies like Monsanto does is now considered legal. And because by this act, Monsanto's and these people are not breaking the law has been changed to allow their mode of business, they cannot be sued, and if they sued, they cannot be defeated in court. This is the reason. And whose fault is it? Is it Monsanto's fault? Is it the fault of those lawyers who are going through the... No! This wrongdoing is being done by the government of the United States. And whose fault is it that the government can make this kind of laws? Your fault. If you are an American citizen, it is your fault that you have allowed the government to do so. Either you can say that this is not a government, this is not a democracy, we are living under a dictatorship, I don't know anything, what I can do, it is same as living under Hitler. If I say something, I'll be shot. Then say it, that you don't have a goddamn democracy, and be done with it. Don't talk about this rubbish, And if you still consider yourself to live under a democratic system, then admit that you collectively are at fault. There is no other way to describe what is happening of this law and blah blah blah. This is the reason Monsanto cannot be defeated, because you have allowed your government to change the law to allow companies like Monsanto's to get away with doing what they're doing. Nobody else can solve this problem. You can, because it is happening first of all in US, and US government uses all its might to shove all this thing down everybody's throat. So I just mentioned 2 things that these people did not really mention. Cartagena Protocol, they completely ignored it, and the law, why these people win the election, and the real joker in the pack is the government changing the law, because you are the biggest jokers who allow the government to get away with it. You don't even know about it, don't even talk about it, don't even do anything about it. Grow, vegetables in your backyard and in your all these are fringe issues. The root cause of poisoning the planet goes on unabated because you are being kept half-assed educated by all this kind of series. Anyway, I mentioned 2, I don't have any more time. I will stand behind my statement that I'm completely disappointed with these career professionals who talk about GMO and try to earn money through your pocket and make you believe that now you know what is the issue and it's worth the money and so on. I'm completely disgusted with all this. I've said my piece. Bye-bye.